So let's talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers and Boston Celtics matchup. They met for the third time this season. And this time the Celtics found a way, 112-105. I thought it was a really impressive win. They won 7 of the past 9 games. They are starting to turn the corner, it seems. After a sluggish start in early December up until the midpoint of January, they've really started to find the rhythm. It seems like shots are going in more often. The offense looked better. They're moving the ball more. The passing looks more crisp. Defensively, I thought they were great tonight. Of course, Cleveland's going to make their shots. That's going to happen. But you hold them to 15 points. Now, to start the game, Cleveland did miss some shots. I will admit that. They had some good offense running, but shots didn't go in. Boston was also missing shots as well, and both teams were just struggling out the gates. And then Jaylen Brown really asserted his dominance. He was playing in the post, playing bully ball, and I like that because he should be doing that for Boston because his three-point shooting has not been there this year. And I like what Jaylen Brown did to start the game. Get in the post, scored the first 12 points for the Celtics because nobody was making a shot. Pritchard comes in the game, and he gets some three-point shooting going. Hauser made a 3. Horford made some 3s as well. Tatum, again, starting slow. It gets annoying at times because I want him to get like 10 to 12 points to start the game. I know he ended the first half with 10 points, but you just want to see more in that first quarter. But again, it's just part of basketball. He ended with 22 points. Third quarter was huge because, the Cavs are making the run. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But I did like the fact Boston was also crashing the offensive glass. Every time they were missing threes, guys were on the glass constantly. It felt like Boston was always attacking Cleveland all night long. And they felt like the bigger team. They seemed like they had the mismatches. They could hunt on their smaller guards, and they did it a lot. They had Darius Garland post positions, and that's going to wear him out when he's giving that effort on defense. Then he has to go on the offensive side of the ball and try to make his floaters. He didn't make them to begin with. He wasn't making a lot of shots. You got to go in the third quarter and fourth quarter. But again, Boston really wore him out. And then you're attacking guys like George Niang and Karis LeVert. These guys, they can do stuff on offense, but it just shows you that Boston has a lot of mismatches they can hunt constantly. When Porzingis was in the post area, when he had smaller guys on him, he would miss some mid-range shots. But I did like the fact Boston was being consistent every time Cleveland made a run because, at some point they were going to make their run. I mean, I know Boston started the game going up 20 points to start the second quarter, but Cleveland started, chipping away. They got down to 10 points in the first half. And I just thought at that point, we'll see how Boston responds because I know Jaylen Brown made the shot before the end of the half. That was big to end the half. They come out. They continue to run their offense. They didn't overreact to Cleveland's runs, which I was really impressed by because I've seen them in the past where, like OKC, they go on their massive run and Boston just completely disappears. But in this matchup, they weren't phased. They respected Cleveland, as they should. They feared them, and they came in and handled their business. Again, you won 7 of your past 9 games. I told my wife, I would love to see the Celtics just play on the road all the time. It seems like when they're away from Boston, they're so much better. I am very curious to see how Boston handles all the success going back home to play Dallas on Thursday because Dallas might not have Anthony Davis available for that game. And even if they do, they got to show up because it could be a trap game. Mavericks going to be motivated. Kyrie Irving's going to be motivated to go into Boston and get a W. So we'll see how they handle that situation. But going back to the game, there was a critical moment where Jaylen Brown went for a dunk. He missed it, and they decided to challenge the play. The Cavs did. So they go to the monitor. They say it was an offensive foul. It was a ridiculous call. I didn't agree with it. I thought, no way he had an offensive foul. What was he supposed to do in the air? He just put his hand on Niang. It wasn't a lot of contact, and it looks like he got fouled there. But they called against Jaylen Brown. He went to the bench. That was his 4th foul. And then he had a technical foul from the bench. And it looks like he was talking to George Niang instead of Scott Foster. Scott Foster is one of the worst referees in the NBA. But again, Boston did not overreact. They stayed poised. So that's what championship teams do. And I love that from Boston because every time Cleveland made their runs, because they're going to, this is a really good basketball team. They can move the ball, they cut, they play team basketball. But what Boston is, every time Donovan Mitchell hit a big 3, Darius Garland got a shot going. They just kept making mini runs. They scored 5 straight points. Cleveland hits a shot, Boston responds. It was a constant thing all night long. Or another key moment in the game is when Cleveland got it down to 4 points. It was 99-95. Boston had the ball. And they were missing their shots, but they were crashing the glass constantly. This was one of their biggest strengths all night long. And they called fouls against Max Strus. And he didn't agree with all of it. But again, Porzingis is being aggressive. Tatum's being aggressive. And eventually, they got so many possessions where it landed in Derek White's lap. And he drove the ball, shot a mid-range shot, and put them up 6. That was a critical moment of the game. And then they get a stop. Derek White hits a crucial 3. And then he hits another three to put him up 10 points. And at that point, you're like, okay, Boston should close this out. Now, I was very curious to see why Jaylen Brown stayed on the bench. And I was surprised by that because, yeah, he has 5 fouls, but he's your second best player. But they kept Pritchard out there for whatever reason. Maybe Joe Mazzulla wanted to point out some things to Jaylen Brown. Maybe he was just coaching him. I don't know. Whatever Joe did there, it worked, even though Pritchard made some boneheaded plays in the last minute where he fouled Darius Garland a 3-point shot to make it a 4-point play. And then they got a rebound. Pritchard got it and just threw it right to Donovan Mitchell when they had 14 seconds left on the shot clock. So just some questionable plays from Pritchard, but I thought he was good for the most part. Again, he might not be used to those situations. I know they've had him in key close games in the past, but I like to see Jaylen Brown out there sooner. Another thing I would like to see is Jason Tatum coming in sooner in the fourth quarter. Now, they're probably resting him for the playoffs, but I would like to see Tatum come back in the 8 or 9 minute mark at the fourth quarter because if teams are going on the runs and the offense looking kind of stagnant, you got to have Tatum out there. Now, Tatum in the fourth quarter, 1 point. He did have 9 critical points in the third quarter when Jaylen Brown went out with his 4th foul. I thought it was really important for him to make that one layup. He was trying to shoot some mid-range shots, so I was really impressed with that. He wasn't always, when he was missing his threes in the first half, he started going to the basket in the third quarter, playmaking, moving the ball around. And Boston was getting good shots out of that. And Tatum had 9 big points when Jaylen Brown left the game. So they needed that because Donovan Mitchell was hitting his shots. Garland was getting his game going. So shout out to the Celtics. I mean, the way they responded, they handled the adversity. Yes, there's some things like, man, you want to see them get better at. Like Holiday had a missed layup in the first half. Derek White had a missed layup in the first half. It was like, what are we doing here? But again, Boston is just getting into their groove. They're 36-15. You got to feel good despite all the adversity they've been dealing with, the shooting slumps. They're in a good spot right now. Even if they don't catch Cleveland for the number 1 seed, Cleveland knows they are the team to beat in the Eastern Conference. They have the mismatches. They can go inside to Jaylen Brown. He can bully ball Garland, George Niang, Karis LeVert. Cleveland really needs an upgrade at the wing position because if you go with this roster against the Celtics in the playoffs, you're going to have a lot of trouble. I'm telling you right now, it's going to be very tough for those guys to match up because, sure, they have strengths on offense, and you could say, well, Cleveland has a deeper team. But in the playoffs, you're playing 8 or 9 guys at most, and you're going to play guys you trust. But the thing is, do you trust George Niang to stop Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum? No, you don't. How about Dean Wade? No, he has some size, but he can't keep up with him. And then they can mismatch hunt for mismatches all night long with Porzingis, Tatum, Brown, Drew Holiday can post up. So they got a lot of guys out there. And again, we saw the Celtics crash the glass constantly. And that can be a concern because we don't have the size advantage that's going to burn you. Now, just looking at the differences in the game, the ball movement, the Celtics 26-18 assists, the offensive rebound at 15 rebounds. Now, of course, the rebound differences wasn't huge. They made most of their free throws, shot better from 3. Field goal percentage wasn't that huge of a difference, but I thought the ball movement, they forced some turnovers, had more blocks. They were more aggressive. They got in the paint, and that was huge. So, again, kudos to Boston. I like to see Tatum get more points in the fourth quarter. I think part of that is when you're sitting down for so long to start the fourth, you might come out cold. And when you're getting your first shot with under 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, that's where I'm like, man, I wish Tatum comes in at the 9-minute mark and get his offense rolling. But again, he got the key still. He made some really big assists to get Derek White his shots. And shout out to Derek White, man. That man is just so clutch for the Celtics. Feels like he hits every 3-point shot for Boston. And they just make plays. So this is just a reminder for the Cavaliers. Like, they're not better than the Boston Celtics. It's obvious. And if they don't get another wing in the next 48 hours to help with their problems on defense, because they can't stop Jaylen Brown in the post, it's obvious. They can't stop Porzingis. They find the mismatches. Then it's going to be a long night for Cleveland. They do have advantages because they like to run in transition, but Boston shut that down. They didn't allow them to run in transition. They played half-court basketball, and that's what's going to happen in the playoffs. The game is going to slow down. So I'm curious to see if Cleveland's going to make a move in the next 48 hours, but Boston is just so good. And they reminded Cleveland that you have a ways to go. Yeah, you're 40-10, but the championship goes through the Celtics. And as long as they're aggressive, Boston, and they're moving the basketball, they're aggressive on the offensive glass. Jaylen Brown is playing in the mid-range area, posting guys up, being aggressive, playing bully ball. This team is just hard to beat. So I love what Boston did. I love where they're heading. They've won 7 of the past 9 games. They're looking like the team we expected this season. They went through that championship slump and that hangover. It happens. And I'm starting to see, like, okay, they're starting to turn the table. I think the game against the Sixers really helped them a lot. They were down 26. They came back and won that game. There was like 3 minutes to go in the third quarter. They got it down to 14, and they just took over in the fourth quarter. Tatum was unbelievable. So, yeah, shout out to Boston. I want to see how they respond against Dallas on Thursday. Come out and throw a haymaker. You win 5 straight. You go to New York, and you're feeling really good about yourselves. But, yeah, Boston, again, proving why they're the best in the East, why they're the NBA champs, and excited to see what happens from here. Hope you guys enjoyed this video today. I'd love to hear your thoughts and reactions to the Celtics and Cavs game. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you in the next one.